I've been sitting here for like probably 30, 40 minutes trying to figure out how to start off this podcast, how to start off this monologue. Um, this is a hard conversation to have. It's my hardest conversation, and it's difficult every time I have to have it. But I've had it twice in the last 2 days, so I figure it's just time to have the conversation. I had it twice in the last 2 days in completely different settings with completely different people. It just keep coming up. And I guess this is like forgive your parents part 2. I don't know. Or maybe it's part 1.5. I don't know. Maybe we need to bring it back to the show. Now, speaking of the show, me and Jones was not able to record this week on Thursday because I had to go buy a car in Milwaukee to replace my car that I totaled last week. So this monologue, which is one of the 30 monologues I'm putting out in September, I'm going to release this monologue to the public. Y'all won't going to get none of these monologues till to next month, to October. But I'm doing 30 monologues in September. I'm just released this one to the public because we're not putting out a podcast this week because I couldn't record. And we couldn't find a replacement because my birthday was the next day, and yeah, we couldn't find enough time to record. But when it comes to the topic at hand, I kind of still don't know. I was on the phone with my parents the other day. My son's mom had called me, and she texted me a couple days ago, and she was like, "Hey, you know, my son didn't have school Friday, so she was like, hey, can you ask your parents, can they keep him Thursday night?" You know what I'm saying? Because I know her reasoning was because she knew I didn't have a car, and that it would be easier if they already had him Friday instead of her dropping him off. It was just a logistical thing, but that was her reasoning for it. And I had just so much on my mind trying to get a car, and my phone was broke, and I had to go to Apple and get my phone repaired and all this other crazy stuff. So I ended up texting them. I ended up not calling them to the night of when I was driving back from Milwaukee. And I was like, hey, can y'all, I was like, hey, Carter mom wanted to know, could y'all keep him tonight? And my father was like, yeah, I'm cool with it. Let me see. Let me ask your mom. I don't think there's nothing wrong with consulting your wife about stuff, but I think the way my father go about it, I almost feel like he never really have a say so, because he'd be all for it. It kind of always feel like it's like a what she says goes type of thing. And like if he was on the affirmative, it just don't matter at all, right? And I just never liked that. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. He was like, let me ask your mom. And I guess I was on speakerphone because she wasn't in the same room as him, but she heard the conversation. And she just like kind of like, nah, if she needs something, she needs to call and ask herself. Like she kind of just started kind of going off a little bit. And I felt it unnecessary, but I also felt like a little boy in that moment. It's something about when my mom get aggressive in any way that makes me feel like a bitch. It make me feel like I don't know, like I just can't respond. Like I just can't, like I just can't stand up to my mom in any capacity. Like, and as a grown man, as a nigga who, I ain't a tough nigga, but I don't let niggas play with me at all. Like grown men, like I don't let niggas play with me at all. I don't let niggas play with me, talk crazy to me, none of that shit. But in that situation, it's always like a how they train dogs to, like, if it's a bell, like if you ring the bell, the dog do this, or whether the dog run and get food, or whether the dog stand up straight, or whether the dog get scared. It's like this certain stimulus makes this dog react a certain way. And I feel that's how I feel when my mom get aggressive in any way. I feel like it frees me. Like I can't say nothing. I can't do nothing. Like, and even like when people, people always just say, "Oh, you gotta have that conversation. You gotta have that conversation." And I remember, the one time I did try and I said something, the reaction was kind of like, "What you talking about?" And that was just enough for me to just not say nothing else. And I remember when my parents took me out to eat for my birthday. It might have been 2 years ago at this point. And it was our first time sitting down having dinner together since I was like 17. So it was like, it was like 15 years or something. And at the table, I was sitting there and I had started to like my eyes started to water up like I was finna cry. I try not to let the tears fall, but, and I don't know what made me so uncomfortable in that moment. It wasn't like a tear of joy thing. I wasn't really necessarily sad. I don't know what it was, but they sitting on both sides, on the same side of the dinner table. I'm sitting on the opposite side. And they looking right at me and they didn't say nothing. They didn't like react to me holding tears. But I think it was very visible. Like I had to like physically like wipe my, eyes before the tears fell. And they didn't acknowledge it at all, which was just weird to me. So that conversation happened that same day. Before that conversation, I was riding in the car with my homie, and we was talking about his son and what his son is going through with his son's mother, and how his son's mother has become very mean to his son and very emotionally abusive and even mentally abusive to their son. And he talked about his childhood and how his mother did him, and he related to me a lot. His mother was a lot more physically abusive than my mother, but she also just said and did a lot of very abusive things to him that he can't to this day really get over. But he's still there for his mom. They never lost connection as far as like they didn't have a period of not talking. Like me and my mom had a period of not talking. But he was very adamant, like, man, my mom fucked me up. Like it took a long time to be okay because she fucked me up. And he was like, he want his son to stand up to his mom. And he was like, my son not gonna be able to stand up to nobody else until he stand up to his mom because that's his first bully. And it was just such an eye-opening thing for me because it was just like, damn. I reached a point in my late teenage years, and even more so in my 20s, where I stood up for myself. Like in my late teenage years, I would stand up to myself, like little conflicts, fights and shit, niggas talking shit like that. I didn't learn to have a backbone when it came to that type of shit until like my late teenage years, like senior in high school, maybe, and then after high school, it was like, all right, niggas ain't, you know what I'm saying? But before that, I'll fight somebody if they hit me, but like, or they tried to hit me or some shit like that. But if a nigga wanted to just try to hold me with words, I was gonna let him. Like, I just didn't have the backbone to stand up to people unless it was physical. Like, I was never the type of nigga who wasn't finna fight back. But as far as like just a nigga saying something, I would literally be like, the thing is, I was allowing myself to be bullied at school because I was being bullied at home. You know what I'm saying? Like I was already being put in a position to where I was being done wrong and not able to do anything about it and not able to stand up for myself. And that was just a norm for me. So at school, it was easy to let somebody bully me. And I think that's the real root of the problem, is that my mother is my first bully. And my father allowed her to be that. And that's my issue with him. You know? I remember like one of my vivid memories of like, when I say a bully, I mean like a bully. Like I remember like I was a kid and it was Halloween time, like obviously close to this time of year. And I had a costume, so I put my costume on. It was just me and my mom in the house, and I put my costume. Now I was about my son's age now. I was about 10 because the house we was living in, I know shit, I was like 10, 10, 11 when we got there. And, my mom, I put my it was just me and my mom in the house. I put the Halloween costume on, and she was finna walk past my room, so I jumped out to kind of scare her, type shit, on some playful shit. And she just kind of paused and kicked me in my balls. And it wasn't like a jump scare thing. Like she jumped and got scared and just kicked me out as a reaction. Like she didn't even get scared. She just looked at me and paused for like a split second and just kicked me in my balls and just walked in her room and closed the door. And I mean, everybody know that like that's like the most sensitive thing on a nigga is like our balls. Like you hit a nigga in the balls, he gonna be fucked up. Grown anybody, you hit a nigga in the balls, he gonna be fucked up for a minute. That was my first time ever being hit in the balls. I used to see that shit on movies, obviously. On TV, you see somebody get hit in the balls and fall down and be rolling around on the ground. So you know that shit hurt, but it had never happened to me before. And my mama did that shit, and like I was just in the hallway rolling around on the ground, like in pain. She just went in her room and closed the door. Like, so when I say a bully, like my mom was a real bully. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was just like often uncalled for and often it just didn't make sense. So I think that a big part of this is that like my mom probably never forgave her parents for shit. You know, we started having a couple conversations when my mom was having heart surgery. That was a very emotional time for me. And to be honest with y'all, like I remember when she was going through that, and I was going to the hospital every day, and we was talking, and I just wanted my mom to just make it through that shit and us to repair our relationship because I didn't want her to, I didn't want her to leave here and us not be okay. And now that she better, our relationship went back to exactly what it was. Like we don't talk. I really slowed down on calling her. And I mean, it didn't take much. It kind of took her to just say something that I didn't like, and that just kind of reminded me of who she was, and it just went right back to what it was. And she made it a task to herself to call me every Tuesday at 9:00, and she did it for like 3 weeks, and I think I answered 2 or 3 times, and I was kind of busy, so we kept it short, and she just stopped. You know what I'm saying? I don't blame her for it because there wasn't really nothing to talk about. Like we'd get on the phone, hey, how you doing? What you up to? I ain't doing nothing. I'm at home. I'm like, well, shit, I ain't doing nothing. I'm on my way to one of these schools to work with the kids. And like, it ain't a comfortable enough space to go into, man, I got this kid that's going through this right now, or, ooh, this how work going, or this how stuff going with my girl. Like, we don't have that I don't even know what to talk about. It's almost like I'm talking to a stranger. It's easier to talk to a stranger, to be honest. Like, it's way easier to talk to a stranger. I make conversations with strangers all the time. Yeah. I don't even know where to go. So I think my mom, like, when one of the conversations we had while she was, going through the recovery from her heart surgery, she was telling me about some family history I never understood, and I guess she had a hard time understanding it. So if y'all could follow me, I know this is gonna be difficult to explain. I feel like I need a visual. So my grandparents on my mother's side, which is my mother's father and my mother's mother, they both had prior marriages before coming together and having my mother. So my grandmother had an ex-husband with 2 kids. And my grandfather had an ex-wife, and I think he had about 3 girls. Yeah, he had 3 girls, right? And then they both got divorces from their partners, and then they got together, and they had my mom, and I want to say about 2 or 3 years later, they had my auntie, right? However, my mother was given the last name of my grandmother's ex-husband and not her own father. Right? So my grandfather's last name was Burrell. And my grandmother's last name was Burrell because they were married. But my mother's last name was Williams. And that the last name Williams didn't come from my grandmother's maiden name. That was her ex-husband's last name. And 2 years later, they had another daughter, which is my auntie, and she also received my grandmother's ex-husband's last name instead of her own father's last name. So my grandfather essentially had two girls in a new marriage and allowed their last names to be his wife's ex-husband's last name. Okay, so obviously for anybody growing up, if you could imagine if that was you, I imagine if I grew up and I'm looking at my parents being married and having the same last name and wondering why my last name is different from my parents' last name, and then finding out that my last name came from my mother's ex-husband, I would wonder, is that my real father? Because why do I have his last name? And when my grandfather passed some years ago, that was a conversation I heard my mother having. Or when it was close to him passing and I don't know if it was just her being like emotional and dramatic, like, or because she's angry that she didn't get her father's last name. But I know it really bothered her that she didn't have her father's last name. Like, that's a big pain point in her life. So when she was going through her recovery and the conversation came up, she said it was because of some type of, if the government knew my grandma was married, they would stop giving her some type of assistance or benefits. So I don't know if the benefits was like some welfare type shit or the benefits was because the ex-husband was in the military and it was some type of benefit connected to that. But it was some type of financial benefit for both of the kids to have the ex-husband's last name. And I don't know if that was because that was my grandmother's current last name before she married my grandfather, or it was literally in some connection to the ex-husband and him being in the military or some shit like that. I don't know. But however, my grandfather, I don't know, I want to call it making a sacrifice, but my grandfather made that decision for extra resources in the household, essentially. That's how my mom put it when she talked about it to me. And I think that that's painful. I respected my grandfather as a man because he took care of everything. He took care of 3 generations, essentially. He took care of himself and his wife. He took care of my mom and my auntie. And I'm talking about in my lifetime. Like, we were all in his household. So he was taking care of his wife, both of his adult daughters, and their 6 kids. And don't get me wrong, my father always provided for me, but at the end of the day, I live with my grandma and my grandfather. So I respect my grandfather, but I also look at that like damn. I mean, I could imagine how hard it was in the 50s and 60s, but it's kind of like that's a big, I don't know, I don't want to call it a sacrifice for some reason, but I guess I will for lack of better terms. Like, that's a big sacrifice to make, to say like, I'm going to give my daughters another man's last name so I can, so we can have more resources in the household. Like, times must have been hard for him to make that decision. And he wasn't emotionally available enough, or maybe even emotionally intelligent enough to talk to his daughters about it. So they always just wondered. I mean, my mother found out however she found out, but he wasn't emotionally available he wasn't emotionally available, period. Like, he just wasn't. Like, that's me knowing the man. He just wasn't. But he might not have been emotionally intelligent enough to be able to break that down in a way that his daughters could be okay with it and just live with it. But it's a tough thing to ask somebody to live with. And I think every man listening to this is probably like, I would never do no shit like that. I'm going to just figure out a way to go get the money. I'm not giving my kids, my daughters, another nigga last name. Another thing was I remember not being able to say that name in the house. I just remember it was certain rules in the house. And there was two names you couldn't say. It was my cousin who passed away as a baby because it triggered my grandma and made her cry a lot. And her ex-husband's name because of my grandfather. You couldn't say his name. It was like you couldn't say it. I don't remember my grandfather's ex-wife's name because the name never mattered in the household. But I know the other nigga's name, and I probably only met that nigga once in life. But I know his name because it was just like a curse word almost. Like, you can't say that shit. It's disrespectful. You can't say his name in this house. It's odd, you know? And I think because maybe that's, you know, just the ultimate pain point for my mom that made her have the relationship with me that she had with me. Fast forward, last night I was having a conversation with a friend at a bar, and an odd conversation. It was just an odd conversation. We was all drinking, and she said something like about our friendship and about that she hopes that she dies before me because she don't want to have to, I guess, experience me dying or being at my funeral or something. I forgot what the point she was trying to make when it comes to that directly. However, Tiff was there, and Tiff took that and was saying that, like I said, this is an odd conversation, but basically, like, you know, she would be so heartbroken if her mom passed first because she just wouldn't know what to do. Like, that's her rock, right? Versus if her dad passed first, she know her mom could help her through it. And it made me think a thought that I've always thought but never said out loud, because that's an odd conversation to have, and people don't think about that. But I've always thought about it, and as crazy as it sounds, and I'm not trying to sound like cynical at all, but if my mom passed first, I would get my dad back, because that's the boundary between me and him. That's the point of tension between me and him. Me and my dad was like best friends when I was a kid, and my mother and my father both have, you know, terrible health problems, but I wouldn't mind my father coming to live with me. Like, if my mom, you know, like, I'm not saying, like, of course I wouldn't want that to happen, but if some like, God forbid, like, something happened to my mom, I wouldn't mind my father like coming to live with me and taking care of my father and helping him, you know, trying to help him get back healthy, giving him healthy food, just having him around like all the time or every day. Like, I wouldn't mind that. Like, I would probably want that. You know what I'm saying? To just have my dad back, you know, like, rebuild our relationship. Cause it's a lot that he missed in my life, and a lot that I think he would be proud if he knew. But he don't really know much about me or what I do or anything, you know. Cause those are just not conversations we have. I was at his house one day, and his best friend was there, and I hadn't seen his best friend since I was like probably a teenager. And you know, damn nigga, I remember you a grown man now. And he was like, he asked me what I do for a living. And at the time, I had just started the job I do now. And I told him. And my father was like, damn, I didn't know that. And his best friend looked at him like, the fuck you mean you ain't know that? And he was like, I didn't know what he did for a living. And, you know, it's just interesting, you know? So it's a lot of things I'm proud of in my life that I think my parents would be surprised about, that I accomplished if they understood it. And I think it's weird that I don't even care to have that validation or approval from them. You know, because every kid is like, hey, mom, look at this. And you jump 3 inches off the ground, and your mom give you the praise, and you feel amazing. And, you know, we do that when we get older. We want to, like, I didn't want to walk the stage at graduation. I think I had just completely separated myself from parental validation. I don't know at what point it stopped, but I remember at my graduation, I didn't want to go. I just wanted to have the paperwork. I didn't care to walk across the stage. The only reason I did is because my son mom bought my son, and she was like, he needs to see it, and he was only 1, so I was like, you know, he don't remember, but we took a picture together and all that. It was cool, but that's the only reason I went. Like, my mom came too. I didn't even go down to you're supposed to go to the graduation and sit and wait for the speeches and wait for your name to get called. I was just in the hallway kicking it with my frat brothers and shit, and I missed my turn to walk. Like my whole, my major. They call everybody by majors, and I missed it, and it was like a section for late people. My frat brothers like, nigga, we supposed to do our chant and shit when you walk across the stage, nigga. Like, go run down there and cross, walk the stage with the late people. So I went down there and did it and shit. But even now, like, whatever I accomplish in life, like, having the validation of myself is good. Having the validation of my friends obviously is good. They've essentially become my family. And yeah, like I don't know. I'm rambling right now, but I think it will be great to have my dad back in that capacity and bring him closer into my life and let him see what who I've been able to become, and see some of the discipline I have and how hard I work and some of the things that I've accomplished. I think he would be very proud, and I think he deserves to be proud of his son. But we just don't have that relationship for me to tell him or show him like who I am. You know what I'm saying? However, if it was the reverse and, God forbid he was to pass away first, I wouldn't know how to deal with my mom. I couldn't live with my mom. I don't know. I know I couldn't have my mom in my house. Like, I know I couldn't. Like, I just couldn't. And I would hate to put her in a nursing home or some shit like that, or a home. And my parents in their 50s, but you would think my parents was way older. My son's mom thought, she was shocked when I said they was in their 50s, because they've become so unhealthy over the years. Just like with injuries, and my dad had surgeries on both knees and his back and his neck, and he walk on a cane in his 50s. Like, he's just fucked up. My mom just had heart surgery, obviously, like, and even that situation, it just let me know how important it is to always be moving, always be exercising, and always be saving money. Because the whole thought of working till you die is based on the premise that you're healthy enough to work till you die. So if you get healthy, too unhealthy to where you can't physically work or do labor, and you 50 and you got 30 years ahead of you, what do you do? And that's their situation right now. So I remember it was a documentary about, they made a documentary about men with life in prison. And it was these particular guys in the prison who had the job of being caretakers to the men who were dying, right? So in the documentary, you had men that was 20 years old that had been sentenced to life in prison. And their job was to be caretakers for men who were like 80 who were dying because they also had life in prison. And they would take care of these men on their deathbeds and talk to them every day. And these men would talk to them about the 40 years that they've spent, or 30 years that they've spent in prison. Some of them, it was like, I came into this prison when I was your age, and now I'm 70, 80 years old, 85 years old, and I'm dying. And these men is like looking at like, this is me. Like, this is what I have to look forward to. 40 years from now, 50 years from now, I'm going to be dying in this prison like this man that I'm taking care of and talking to every day. And it was just a reality check of like what the end of life will look like. And I say that to say that like some of the things my parents are going through right now is just a reality check of like, nigga, keep not saving money. Nigga, if you stop going to the gym, if you stop eating healthy, if you eat a whole bunch of bullshit, don't work out, and spend all your money. Because my parents they owned a house. My father always had different cars, nice cars, rims, sounds in his cars, all type of shit. So it's not like they didn't make the money. They just didn't do right with the money. You know what I'm saying? And now it is what it is. But like I say, like if it ran into a situation where I had to take care of my mom, I don't know what it would look like, because I can't have her in the house with me just because I just can't, like emotionally or like mentally, I just couldn't do it. And then on the other side of that, if I put her in a nursing home or something, I know I wouldn't visit like that. You know what I'm saying? So I really just wouldn't know what to do. And it's just interesting, you know. So obviously, like that's the one problem in life that I haven't been able to overcome. I've overcome so much in my life, like so much. Like I've made so much progress in my life. I've overcome so many obstacles. I've fought and won so many battles, internally, externally, professionally, you know, spiritually, financially, like, you know what I'm saying, mentally. Like I've fought so many battles, like battles with my confidence, battles with my self-control, battles with porn, battles with sex, battles with everything, bro. With niggas, you know, battles with staying who I am and not jumping in the streets in a certain way. Battles with social status, battles with trying to build a business, you know, battles with friends. Like I've overcome a lot of shit and my life is good. Like it's really, really good. It's really, really, really good. I'm very appreciative of life. You know what I'm saying? And I have everything I want. And it's so much to have, and it's so much that anything that I want that I don't have is like completely ego based. Like I have everything that I want. I got love in my life. I got, you know, I got my sanity. I got my wits. I'm mentally strong. I'm emotionally sound. I still need to work on my spirituality, but I don't know. I just love my life. Like, but that's one battle that I have not fought. Like I I guess I am fighting it, but I'm losing though. Like that's the one battle I haven't overcome, and it's my first battle. It's like the battle. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my first trauma, my first everything is that. And it's like I walked away from that and fought a million other battles and that one's still right there and I still don't have whatever it take, whatever courage, whatever bravery it is, I need to like just sit down and have a conversation with somebody. Ain't that ironic? Sit down and have conversations every day. I'm talking to y'all every day. You know, I could talk to strangers every day. I could guest podcast host, sit on TikTok live. You know what I'm saying? Like I had I do therapy. Like I had conversations for a living. Like whether it be podcasting or my actual 9 to 5 job, I have conversations for a living. Like that's what I do. Is have conversations with my friends. Everybody call me for advice. I'm a conversationalist. Like literally, like that's my profession is talking to people, talking about problems, talking about conflict, helping other people overcome shit. And I can't have a conversation. Like that's my strongest tool. It's null and void when it comes to my mom. Can't have a conversation. This is not a podcast or a situation where I have a solution because I just don't. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a solution for it. It's just me expressing, you know, what my mind is at this morning. This early morning. My voice ain't even clear yet, but all in all, man, like I always say, this is a podcast where we walk the path of self-improvement. And in walking that path, we understand that even though everything not our fault, we blame ourselves for everything because when you blame yourself, you make better decisions. And then blaming ourselves, we don't punish ourselves. We learn, we uplift ourselves, we course correct, we stay accountable, and we move forward, and we forgive ourselves. You know, so I guess the only resolve I can offer for anybody who might be experiencing anything similar to what I'm experiencing is to really just remember that you're never stuck in reality. You only mentally stuck. No matter what you're going through, you never stuck. No matter how stuck you've ever felt, you've never actually been stuck in reality. You just stuck mentally, and you just got to think more and plan more and figure it out. And I've learned that through all the battles I've been able to win in my life, and I guess I need to apply that to this this last battle that ain't going nowhere. It ain't going away, and it's something I got to figure out. So, as I always say, man, whatever you want in life, go for it, man. Decide, plan, sacrifice. I'm out.